Hello everybody, my name is Lakita Long and I am so excited that you are joining us. We are going to be talking about health and wellness, and not just health and wellness. We're going to be specifically talking about Black women's health, and we're hoping that you will stay tuned with us as we go through the variety of different topics that I think will be a blessing to you and your family. Throughout the times, we find ourselves as Black people not just taking care of ourselves in a very good way. And then what happens is we think we are until we are 45 pounds overweight and we're 5'4" and we're 195 pounds. That was my story. So I know exactly what it means to carry the weight of the world. What's more important and a little bit disturbing is when we tell ourselves that we're not fat, we're not obese, we're not overweight. But what ends up happening, guess what? It shows up in a variety of different ways. Stress, trauma, the way that we communicate, our production, and all the other things that we find ourselves going through. Not to mention anxiety, depression, moodiness, and all the stuff we don't talk about. So just for a few moments, I want your ear, your heart, your mind, and your spirit to tune in just for a moment for us to discuss the Goliath topic of health as it pertains to Black people, and that is diabetes. And let me tell you something, you need to hear about what's going on, what we're not doing, and I'm sure if you listen with the intent to do something, your life will never be the same. Looking forward to you sharing in this moment in time. Hello everybody, this is Lakita Long and we are excited that you have come back for us to continue the conversation about the Goliath disease that is affecting Black Americans. And it's not just affecting Black Americans, it is really affecting Black women's health. I mean, this particular disease is impacting 11.4 million Black people. That is a lot of people. And we're talking about diabetes, something that I'm sure many of you are dealing with and or you know someone who is dealing with that. So please stay tuned as we talk to someone who's had her journey. Pre-diabetic, lost the weight, got complacent, and thought she was all good like we all do. Hey, I'm good, hey. And then guess what? She found out she became full-blown diabetic, and then she had to make a decision. And we're getting ready to talk to her about what was that decision and why she had to make it at the time she did. So welcome, Pamela Sterling. It's so good to see you.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Lakita.
You're very welcome. So let's just cut to the chase and get right to it. So you are 55 years young, you have 2 children, and you found out that you have diabetes. But it's interesting in your story about how you came to find out that you had it. Share with us just for a second or so about how did you come to find out that you were pre-diabetic and all of that stuff.
Yeah, well, so I wasn't feeling good, wasn't looking good in my clothes, and tried Slim Fast, a couple other things. And a coworker of mine also was overweight. And so she was going through this program, and she suggested, hey, why don't you join this program? And I'm like, okay, I'll give it a try. And so I went, they did the whole body workup and the BMI and all that stuff. And so they came back and they said, hey, we noticed in your makeup that you might be pre-diabetic. So you might want to go to the doctor and have this checked out. So I'm like, okay. So I went, and of course I was on the bubble, and they put me on metformin for about a year. I went through the program, lost the weight, and after about a year, they took me off. And it's funny, they didn't really say, well, let's retest you. Why don't you just take it? And so I just stopped taking it. And so that's how it all really began.
And I want to kind of highlight just for a moment before we go on to the next parts is that what I found is that what we typically do in the Black community is that we start feeling good, and then we stop feeling bad. So then we stop doing the regimen that we need. And then we're waiting for somebody, or maybe we're not waiting for anybody, to tell us to do the next step. And what we're hoping that this particular Black Women's Health episode really jars you, that you don't need to wait for anybody to tell you to do anything. You need to really pay attention to your life and to know that once you feel better, it does not mean you go back to living the way that you did. And speaking of which, let's talk for a moment. So you lost the weight, then you found out you're full blown, and now what's going on also in your life at the time?
Well, so what happened is, so I did lose a weight.
Okay.
It came off, it stayed off for a while. And so, I started telling myself, well, I can eat this, I can eat that. And I kind of, would kind of put my own program together or what I needed to do to keep it off, but it wasn't. And so I just kind of really dismissed it for a while. And the weight just came back even more. And I wasn't really one of those take pictures and things like that. But yeah, the weight started to come back and started not feeling good again. And I'm trying to remember going to the doctor because there were some other issues coming up. I was going to the bathroom a lot. My vision started getting blurry. And I said, maybe I need new glasses. Still not thinking it could be diabetes. And so went to the, to the eye doctor, and they're like, no, everything is okay. Went to the doctor. They did my blood work. And of course, now this time I have type 1 diabetes.
And I think it's really important that you say that, because there are two major risk factors as it pertains to diabetes that you need to hear me when I say this. The first major risk factor, and you talked about it, is the obesity. And so when you talked about BMI, which stands for body mass index, it's a metric system that works in correlation with our metabolic system and activities in our body, so that we can look at height and weight, and they configure it all together, and they find out that there's a certain weight that we should be at by a certain height. Now you're 5'1", and I'm 5'4", and I know that being 5'4", I should really only be around about like 131, and that's pushing it. And I've been 130, and it's not that it's a high school weight. The 130 is not a bad weight on me. It's only bad for those who think that it is what needs to happen. And that they don't believe that it should happen in terms of me looking a certain kind of way, because they're accustomed to seeing me 160, right? So here's the point. So obesity is the first risk factor. The second risk factor is the inability to be active. So we have a lack of activity in our lives, and that is major. And yet, one of the major complications of the diabetes that you talked about, that you were unaware, is blindness. Did you know that? Blindness, and then we get into the amputation, and then we get to all these things, and that was well before you even knew. So just imagine if you hadn't taken the time to really do the steps, where would we be? So let's talk for just a second. So you realize your vision was getting blurry, and you realize that other things were starting to happen. And before you get to talking, just for a few moments, I want us to just go, and we're just going to come back in just a moment, because I want us to take a look just for a second. If you are out there and you're not feeling well in your body, and you're not feeling well in your mind, eyes are blurry, something else is going on, will you do me a favor? Make sure you call a friend and tell them to stay tuned for the next part that we're going to have.
Some of the signs and symptoms of type 1 and type 2 diabetes are increased thirst, frequent urination, extreme hunger, unexplained weight loss, presence of ketones in the urine, fatigue, irritability, blurred vision, slow healing sores, frequent infections such as gums, skin infections, or vaginal infections. If you develop any of these symptoms, you really should check in with your doctor.
Now, let me ask a more serious question. I think that we often leave on the table when we're having any discussions. And I want to talk about the correlation of our mental health. During that time, when I think about even my own stuff, I'm only 5'4", but at my heaviest, I was 196.5 pounds. And yes, I did put that 0.5 because it was serious, because it was not me. But there was a lot of things going on mentally. at that time that just was just profound. And so I want to talk with you for a moment. What was the correlation mentally and your physical stuff that was going on? Can you tell us a little bit about what was happening?
Oh, sure. So mentally, I was just depressed
Okay.
because I wanted to look good. It really wasn't about my health. I wanted to look good.
So did you guys hear that? Which is generally for anybody. We want to look good, but it's not about our health. And I want to tell you, you need both. It's okay. Look good, feel good, look good. All of it is necessary for the alignment. I can look good, but not be a really good person on the inside of this body. So you wanted to look good, but you weren't really so much concerned about the health side.
Exactly.
And you definitely weren't concerned about the mental side. So when did you know that the depression might be aiding in like the little snacking and the extra stuff that you might have been doing?
It didn't come till later.
Interesting.
It did not come till later because, like I said, I wanted to look good, and so I started changing how I viewed my weight. Not even really, not considering. It's like I put looking good ahead of my health. It with okay, so it's okay to be a little overweight. Buy some bigger clothes. You love yourself. You're beautiful, whatever size you are. And so that's what I told myself. But my health kept ringing forward like something's wrong. Okay, so now I'm going to show you you're blind. Your arms are tingling. And then I said, I got to do something.
I mean, just think about this for a moment. I'm just serious. Listen, she says you're going blind. You got your arms is tingling. And it took all of that. Sisters, hear my heart for just a moment. In a real serious, I'm laughing and we're joking and we're talking, but we want to express the realness of our health, the health and wellness that we only get one opportunity to have. If your arms are tingling, if your eyes are getting blurry, if you're not feeling well on the inside, if your legs is numb when you wake up, but you didn't have anything sitting on it when you were laying down, there is something else going on. May this be a wake-up call. Quit ignoring it. Quit ignoring it. And so you realize you cannot ignore it anymore. And then let's fast forward. So you're going through your depression. You're fighting through all of that. You're still working. You're still making it happen. Still being a mom. You're still coming to the realization that something else is going on. What was the thing that changed and made you go, I've got to do something else? What was that?
I just had to cry out. I started talking. I started sharing with people. I talked to a close friend of mine. I'm like, I was just really depressed. And she was like, I'm like, I don't want to have to take medication. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And she's like, hey, let's do this together. Let's do it together. And so I said, well, let me try a little exercises because it's not really about doing it. It's getting started. And so I just really needed that little push, that encouragement from someone that was doing it and it was working for them. And that was a turning point for me. And once I turned that corner, once I ejected that tape, it's like, get over it. This is what it is, accepting the reality is that you have diabetes. And if you don't do something about it, you're going to die.
And let me say, I was shocked when I saw the before and after photo of you. And I think that, it's necessary for us to be able to show that so that the world can know like the seriousness of when we neglect our health and what it looks like to take control of our health. It's like day and night for that before and after. And so now you've made a decision. You find this opportunity where it's you are doing a challenge. I think it was something did a friend tell you about the challenge?
Yes.
Or okay, so she's doing a challenge, a walking off growth challenge, and so excited that you did it. And I remember you being a part of that process and chiming in 10,000 steps every single day for 100 days in order to walk 1 million steps. And you did it.
Yes.
So high five to you.
Yes.
And what was that experience like when you realized, because it wasn't just the steps, there was a bunch of other stuff that was going on. What was that experience like for you?
It was phenomenal. You look at infomercials and you see before and after pictures and you see people I'm like, they're just doctoring the photos. This is not really happening.
Right.
But when I started to really see the change in me, and when I started, I'm like, I'll just do it for maybe about a month because 100 days. Who's gonna walk for 10,000 steps, 400 days. But I had to just say it's one day at a time. Let's do it today. And then once I got started, okay, so now let's do 12,000 steps. I just kept pushing myself. And then to log on and to see these women that were struggling and having other things going on and doing it, it's like, well, what am I complaining about? Let me do it too. And so that was a phenomenal experience. And it was no longer about losing the weight. It was about getting all that other stuff from the inside out.
So you recognized early on, so here you are going through this Walk It Off Growth Challenge, and we're so grateful for the opportunity to have met you through that process, but to see the actual real work, that it was a combination of the physical exertion, of you doing some kind of walking and some physical activity, which helps to reverse diabetes. That's one. And then, but we also incorporated some other stuff. We did some classes, we did some mental health training and mindset reset and so forth and so on. And, based on our conversation, what was, you told me, but I want you to tell them, what was the main thing that really helped you to come to a place of I'm not going to let the Goliath beat me. I'm going to beat Goliath. What was the main thing that you gathered from that experience?
The main thing I gathered is with doing the shakes, with doing the workout programs before, and even with doing this, that I never went to God and said, what will you have me to do with this weight? What will you have me to do? I never incorporated him into that. And once I did that, he directed me to this phenomenal program, to other sisters and let me know, even though he's with me, you got a community of us sisters that are with you too. And that was really the turning point for me. And it's like a light bulb went off and said, you never came to me. And God is so wonderful. He's so gracious. And he sits there and he's like, okay, she gonna eventually come this way. And I'm gonna let her know this is what you need to do, because what's happened this time, before any other times, is that it stays off, and I'm intentional about it. I'm focused about it.
Yes.
And he gives me everything that I need. And when I start to get a little weary, he throws somebody in the community and let's do this, see, and it just keeps giving. It just keeps giving. And it's for me, it's a lifestyle change. It's not a diet. It's not a program. Because when you look at diets or programs, it has a start and it has an end date. This is a lifestyle change, and it all started with changing my mindset.
And I want to just say, for those of you guys that are watching us, the seriousness of what it is that we're talking about today. Every Goliath can have its moment to fall, but the Goliath can never have its moment to fall if you don't have the proper tools. If those who are familiar with the story in the Bible about David and Goliath, while he was short in stature and he was not even a part of the king's army, he figured out that he had something that was powerful, and he used what was in his hands. Our job here is just to remind you to use what's in your hands. And the first thing that must be in all of our hands and our hearts is the real need to go back to the one who gave us breath in the first part. You can do nothing without God. And I'm a practitioner. I'm a scientist by nature, but I came to figure out that without him, there is nothing that is sustainable over a period of time. And so with God at the helm of any decision that you and I make, and with God at the helm of any decision that we desire to stay with, we can conquer the Goliaths in our lives, whether it's diabetes or something else. And so Pamela, tell us now, where are you at in that entire journey of yours? Share with us.
So I go back to the doctor, and I'm just excited about my weight and how I'm looking, and not just how I'm looking, but how I'm feeling.
Yes.
And so I'm like, hey, doc, can we do another, blood work? And she's like, yeah. And it came back, and she said, your numbers are normal. I'm like, what do you mean my normals are normal? She said, I was on, I was taking insulin shots in my stomach. I was doing shots. I was doing high blood pressure, pills, high cholesterol. All those numbers are normal. I'm like, so you mean I don't need to take it anymore? She said, you're good. She said, just whatever you're doing, continue to do what you're doing. but you were good. And oh my God, I just wanted to
Listen,
cry.
and I'm going to cry too, because I think one of the biggest things that I've come to realize in watching the journey is that it's the fruit of it. It's one thing to talk about something you're doing. It's another thing to experience the fruit. And the fruit is that she's off of those meds. And I am like so excited. And we want you to also experience the fruit also. So make sure you stay tuned to what we're doing and find us somewhere and join us in one of our challenges. It will change your life. Absolutely. Guaranteed.